Huskies on what it means to make it to the national championship. Thanks to ESPN. Mark May on the Right to a Guest line. How we doing today, Mark?
Happy New Year, guys. How you doing?
Happy New Year. When's the last day of January that you can stop saying Happy New Year?
Probably the last day of the month.
Really? So I got to go 30. I got to go like, what, 25 more days?
Sure. Absolutely, Rock.
Hey, before we get into college football talk, your former team, the Redskins Commanders now, where are they going? I mean, new head coach, most likely. They're going to be able to pull it all back in and make them competitive once again?
I think they will. It'll probably take time. I don't think it's one of those things that's got to be instantaneous that you can do it in 1 year. You've got to basically go in there and clean out the whole organization, and that's a lot of work to do and a lot of replacements to do. And you should probably do it step by step, department by department. But the first thing is you've got to fire the general manager and his staff, and you've got to hire somebody and put somebody in charge of that. Then you've got to go out and get your head coach. Either do it that way, or if you're going to give your head coach total control like a Jim Harbaugh, you bring him in first and let him handle that.
And it seems though this ownership is bound and determined to do that, Mark. And have you had any conversation with the new ownership whatsoever?
With some of the people that are there now, but not with the owners. I'm not in that billionaires club, so I haven't gone that high yet. But I haven't been back to Washington in a while, so I guess I've been invited back a few times. So I think in the off season they're going to plan something to get together with Coach Gibbs and the old crew. So I'll probably be back for that for sure.
Just like Cardinals, they bring you back, right? Former players.
Get your opinion.
I wouldn't go back if they pulled a Rolls Royce up in front of my house and gave me the keys.
So, Mark, Monday, is this these the two best teams?
I think so. I think the league, the way it played out, the number one seeds, I think in both conferences, they're the two best teams by far. Looking at the schedule this weekend, I love the way that Roger Goodell and the NFL planned it out, where at least it would be competitive for at least half of the games, the teams that have to fight to get into the playoffs.
And we're talking in reference to now with Washington and Michigan as far as the two best teams. Are those the two best out of those that were in the top 10, Mark?
Yeah, they earned it. If you look at it, Washington's one of those teams, guys, and you break it down, look at their head coach, Kalen. DeBeor. He's 25-2 at Washington since he's been there. He's in the playoff now. Now they're in the final of the championship game. And every time that we decided we were going to count them out. Remember the first time against Oregon? Well, Oregon should have won that game. They went for it on fourth downs. They blew timeouts. They should have won that game easily. Then the second time in the rematch in the Pac-12 championship game, Oregon's a better team. They're going to come in. They're going to roll over Washington, and that didn't happen. He prepares his team extremely well. Overall, he's 104-11 in his coaching career. The man knows how to get his team prepared to coach in big games. So I wouldn't discount Washington. And then you look at Michigan with Jim Harbaugh. There's a lot of sub-stories there, side stories there with Jim Harbaugh, obviously. But the way this Michigan team has battled and come back and played, I was extremely impressed the way their defensive line turned it up against Alabama's offensive line. They made the offensive line of Alabama revert to what they were back earlier in the season that just couldn't protect their quarterback.
And do you feel watching Washington pretty much the whole year that they can match that physicality of the Michigan Wolverines, Mark?
I think that when they played Oregon the second time, it proved to me that they could. And that was one of those things when you looked at this football team, you thought that Oregon was just going to out-physical them up front, particularly in the trenches. And Washington just turned around and they just hit them right in the mouth and made them back down. And then against Texas in the trenches were pretty doggone good. They're weak on the outside, particularly the defensive cornerback position. But inside, you thought Texas's defensive line would take control of this game. They didn't. This Washington offensive line is pretty doggone good. I've been thinking to myself that, you got to take Michigan just the way they played this year, with and without Harbaugh, the way that they rolled this year. They controlled the line of scrimmage. At least against Alabama, you saw the physicality of this football team. And when they had to throw the ball to make conversions, they got it done. But God dog it, every time you count out this Washington team, they just come back and win.
Well, on top of that, I loved how they came out against Texas and they just got on it. And they just went right after. They went right to fourth gear, started going up and down the field. Have the Wolverines faced any kind of an offense like this their entire year? I know you probably didn't watch every Michigan game, but was there a game in particular you might have noticed that Michigan played something similar to the Washington offense?
I think if you look at Ohio State, because of the way that they protected their quarterback and they've got speed on the outside and great wide receivers on the outside, that was probably the team that most comparable faces to Washington. Look what Michigan did to Ohio State. But Washington's a little different with Romo Dunze on the outside, and you look at Michael Penix Jr., what he did to Texas defense. He carved them up. It wasn't even close. I mean, this kid, he's gotten so much better than the days that he played at Indiana. It's unbelievable. His passes are super precision. They're always on the mark. And Manuch has to know this. It's like, look at the way that he stays in the pocket. He manipulates the pocket in the defensive front, and he just doesn't make mistakes. It's just one of these quarterbacks that he gets better every time you see him, and he can throw the deep ball as well as anybody in college football.
I want to go back to DeBeor. Only 11 losses his entire career as a head coach. 5 years at Sioux Falls, 67-3, 12-6 Fresno State, now 25-2 at Washington. They're talking about putting him on Mount Rushmore, South Dakota, if they win, in Washington at the championship. But when you look at a guy like that, is Washington a good job? Is that a top-notch job now that they're switching conferences? Or do you think someone from the SEC is going to pick him up or go after him?
I think that going to the Big Ten is going to be comparable to the SEC because they're going to have the money just like the SEC has money. So they're going to be the two big conferences out there that we know. We know the Big 12 is going to try to compete and the ACC is going to try to compete, but it's those two conferences that has the deep pockets. If somebody wants to go after him, it's going to be tough to get him. I'm more concerned of him leaving college football and going to the NFL.
Oh.
Because if you're an astute general manager, you're saying, geez, he won at the lower level at South Dakota State, then he goes to Fresno State and
3
higher, then he goes to the Pac-12, and look what he's been able to accomplish every place he's been. Whatever he's doing and whatever mixture he has or potion he has for winning, it works. It works on every level, so why wouldn't you give him a shot at the NFL?
Who has a better shot at a head coaching job in the NFL next year, DeBeor or Harbaugh?
I think Harbaugh. I think the iron is hot right now for Jim Harbaugh to leave, whether they win or lose the national championship game. Because look at what he's been able to do when he was at San Francisco. He won at San Diego. He won at Stanford. And obviously he won at Michigan, but he won with the San Francisco 49ers. And right now the league is starved for good head coaches. You don't want to go ahead and get Belichick. He's 71 years old. The game's passed him by. He wants total control, and he's terrible at draft and skill position. So why would you want a guy like Belichick? Why would you want another retread in the NFL? Bring back Harbaugh. I think he's probably the guy that's going to get it done in the NFL, and I think he's going to be attracted to the Chargers. He's going to be attracted to the Commanders, and I think there's a reason why, because they want to win. I know the Carolina Panthers definitely wants to interview with him again because they interviewed with him last year, but he's not going to take that job. Look what he did those last two head coaches. They just can't keep head coaches in Carolina. They've got a meddling owner. Why would you want to go there?
Mark, is the last box from you can gather that he wants to check that being Harbaugh back in the NFL and to go get that NFL title and so match his brother? Is that the burning itch for one Jim Harbaugh?
I think so, especially if he wins the national championship on Monday. If he does that, then I would say that he's definitely out of there. Even if he loses, I think he's out of there because he's got a team that he's got 14 or 15 kids that are going to be drafted off this team. So he's got to be in a total rebuild model at Michigan next year. Why not strike with the iron's hot when everybody knows his name's out there and everybody knows he's a great coach? He can coach in college. He can coach in pros. He's been successful at both. This is the time to go. You're not getting any younger.
Who wins on Monday?
Man, that's a tough one, guys. You sure put me in a box. Every time I count this Washington team out, they find a way to win.
Yeah, me too.
I think it's going to be a great game. I think it's going to be a one-score game. It's going to go down to the wire. I think in the end, Michigan's physicality, I think, will take over. The way that they just tore up Alabama really, really impressed me up front.
Have a great weekend, buddy, as always, man. Thank you, and Happy New Year.
Hey, wait, guys,
Yep.
1 second.
Okay.
If you go back and do the best segments of 2023, it's got to be what Jimmy B was talking about when he was on the plane. He was going to the Mile High Club. He was explaining on how to do it. When the cart goes by with the sewers, that's when you get up and you go back to the back lavatories. That was the best segment you guys had all season long.
That's great, Mark. Oh, touche.
We were so glad you're one of our top listeners.
Yeah,
Mark,
you're a listener of the year. Yeah. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. That's great stuff. Yeah, Mark May joining us here. You can follow him on Twitter or X, Mark_May, and he's brought to you today by All City Towing. If you're looking for a career that pays great with incredible benefits, All City Towing continues to hire. They got new people. They need new people, I should say, to join their team. Head to allcitytowing.com. Search careers. That's allcitytowing.com. Coming up, give you your schedule for the weekend when it comes to football as we do our Arena Football Sports Grill giveaway for pizzas. Yep, I know I said I'm not doing it, Shu, but I'm going to do it. Giving away some pizzas next. I'll tell you how as we continue from right.
This is The Herd.
The winner in this is also